Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I'm here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about the big kerfuffle in the movie industry right now.
I just think you like to say the word kerfuffle.
I do. I always look for a reason to say kerfuffle because it doesn't get enough usage.
I agree. It's a fun word to say.
Kerfuffle.
It's fun.
So, yeah, we talked a couple weeks ago about how Trolls 2 was released direct to video.
Right.
Pay-per-view, PVOD, whatever the hell that means. That's Premiere Video.
Premiere Video on Demand.
It's a more expensive pay-per-view option, right?
It basically means that it's the movie that would have been in theater. You're getting to see it as, it would have been in theater.
First run on home video.
Right, because the theaters were closed.
Right, so people were upset because everybody else was postponing their movies, but Universal's like, nah, we're good. We're going to go ahead and do this Trolls thing. And they went ahead and did it. The Movie Theater Association threatened them. And now they're making good on that threat because a whole bunch of movie theaters are refusing to carry Universal movies now that they did this.
Well, it wasn't just this one. They put out Emma too, and Invisible Man, which is already out in theaters. Right. And then they have other releases coming out they announced. I didn't put it in the article, but they had a couple other releases that weren't like big ones or anything that they announced were going to be put on to direct to the PVOD. And then, as a result, the NATO, meaning National Association of Theater Owners.
Not the other NATO.
Anyway, their CEO, John Fithian, this is a fun name to say, Fithian. He's kerfuffled. He said that this performance is indicative. Okay, first of all, they're saying basically they're pissed because they're doing it. Then he said the only reason it succeeded was because of all the promotion that they gave it for in-theater release.
Right. Because here's the thing. I don't remember seeing much of anything for Trolls.
I don't either.
Because all the marketing budget would have been the lead up to the movie, and everyone had already been in lockdown for a couple of weeks.
Well, they were doing some commercials, but I think there was mostly, but most of it was about going direct to the video. And you could, you paid more to rent it, but you could watch it as many times as you want for 24 hours. People probably paid it for their kids because they would have paid it to go see it once in the theater with their kids. So it wasn't a bad deal if you watched it over and over again. Right.
And look, what they're afraid of at the end of the day, the movie theaters, is they're afraid that this will become the new normal. And we're seeing a lot of pushback from movie theater owners, obviously, because that's their income, the same way that we're seeing that in comic books right now.
But we've been hearing for a while that the studio's been looking for a way to make this the new normal. Yeah,
because, look, from the studio's point of view, even if a movie makes $100 million, they still have to give the distributors their cut. Mm-hmm. They actually get they get some, but they don't get as much as they could. Whereas you might be more profitable if you made $50 million, but you got to pocket all of it.
Right.
And that's what they're kind of looking at. And, I was surprised that Trolls World Tour made $95 million.
In the first 19 days.
But still, for a direct-to-video thing, how many people even knew it was available?
Right.
This is not normal. They might not have even known they could do this.
They might not have the ability to watch it from there. Not everybody has the access to do it, and they might have dial-up internet. Still a thing, apparently, to have really, really slow internet that's dial-up speed. My parents have heck of time watching anything because their internet is complete garbage.
Oh, yeah, they're on DSL, but they get, and
it's not their... They have no other choice. They have no other choice. That's all they can get. So some people can't do it. They can't watch it even if they wanted to.
Yeah.
But, I think a lot of people... I don't know. I just think people will miss the experience, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way I feel about arcades and, sadly, comic book shops. Mm-hmm. Is, I have a lot of really fond memories going to arcades and going to comic book shops, but the reality is I can play all those games at home. Mm-hmm. And
you still go if you can.
Yeah, I still go, for the nostalgia, just for the experience of going out, but it's not necessary. So what will probably happen because of this, and the theaters they're going to have to adapt or die. What'll happen is, like you were talking before, they'll probably wind up having a simultaneous release, digital and theater,
or it'll be out
like
in the
a
theaters,
week or two.
You'll be in theaters like 2 or 3 weeks, and then it'll go right to digital.
Well, that's kind of what happens with the limited release for some imported movies, Japanese movies. Mm-hmm. Shin Godzilla was a good example of that. I took Squid King to go see Shin Godzilla. It was a limited engagement here in the Pittsburgh area, and then 3 weeks later, they brought it out on Blu-ray.
Right.
Because it was just kind of almost like a catch it on the big screen, have the experience of going to see it with a bunch of Godzilla fans, and then it's going to be out on Blu-ray.
Was it busy?
There was I don't know. There was like 20 people in the theater.
That's it?
Yeah, it wasn't because it was only that weekend. It was like one weekend only, and it's the same. It's the same company that does like
the Dark Crystal one.
Yeah, they brought the Dark Crystal
Labyrinth
back and Labyrinth. It's kind of the niche movie thing, you know.
Yeah. So I think there's always gonna be demand for people wanting to go, but I just don't know. I think they've been looking for a reason to cut theaters out for a while now, and now they have it. But theaters are trying to make threats. They're all like, well, we're not going to carry your movies anymore. I really don't think they care at this point. I
don't think they care either. I mean, we already saw it with Warner Brothers. You know, we talked about John Stankey making the comments he made the other day, where and he had to kind of walk it back a little bit, but he was basically like, we're going to get our movies out there come hell or high water. Mm-hmm. So they might be able to blacklist Universal, but if other studios start doing the same thing, they cannot blacklist everybody. They're not going to have any movies to show.
Here's the thing. How long can studios hold out until if shutdowns continue? Because some places are going to be open, other places aren't. If they continue, what are they supposed to do? Like, they can't just like hold on forever until they, can get their money back because theaters can't open. And theaters are considered like a phase 2 or 3 thing, depending on where you're at.
Right, and this is like comic books. People were pissed off that DC Comics found a way to get the comics out there. They went and they got another distributor, and we had shop owners that were mad. We had other comic book publishers that were mad. But at the end of the day, DC Comics has to think about DC Comics, and they have to get stuff out there. DC Comics, of course, is owned by Warner Media. So it's the same kind of mindset, where they're going to get the stuff out there, whether or not the theaters are available. I mean, arcades dying didn't kill off the video game industry.
Right. And I mean, whether you agree with it or not, whether we agree with it or not, is irrelevant. The facts remain. There are a lot of people who still want to go to theaters, but theaters aren't an option right now. And studios have to get their products out there. And so what's going on is, because they did what they had to do to stay, get their money back as much as they could, theaters are now mad, even though they were going to be shut down no matter what.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what's wrong, what's right or wrong here, but now they're basically gonna not carry their movies anymore. Yeah,
so there are several. It started out as AMC, and we had some folks were letting us know. WeBear here said Odeon in the UK, but this just popped up on The Verge. The 2 biggest US theater chains have banned Universal movies because of Trolls World Tour. Of all the movies to get upset about.
I know, it's funny.
Like, it wasn't going to make a ton of money anyway.
Now, all this press means people are going to go buy the movie more, and it's going to give them more money.
Well, that's what's going to happen. They're going to be like, oh,
that's out?
I didn't realize, because I saw commercials for it. I didn't know I could watch it now. I thought it was coming out in a couple of months at the theater. Oh my God, you can watch these new movies at home? Yeah. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? So yeah, this is actually going to help people, I think. And now what's really interesting before we get into this is we'll talk about what has happened with Vudu. Vudu has Comcast has a pretty large ownership stake in it.
Comcast has the majority stake. I think I want to say it's like 70%, and then that'd be NBC, Universal, and Comcast, and then AT&T Warner Media has the other 30% of Fandango. Okay, so Fandango, which has Fandango Now, which is one of these services, has now offered to buy Vudu from Walmart, which should give them the control of that. So if it's through Fandango, it would probably be the same kind of split where Comcast, NBC, Universal would have like the 70%, AT&T the 30%. So now they own both Fandango Now and the Vudu's Theater at Home.
So they'll probably combine those because Vudu, I think, is the bigger of the 2 platforms. So what will probably happen, and this makes a lot of sense because a couple of weeks ago when they did this, they called it like Theater at Home or something, and I went to go buy a movie on Vudu. For us, they had this survey. They're like, how do you know about Theater at Home? I'm like, yeah, I get the basics. And they're like, how likely would you be to buy a new release movie the week it came out, even if it costs more? How many people on average watch films? Do you have, this kind of setup or whatever? So they're testing the waters to see if they can just bypass theaters completely going forward. And that's what's going to happen.
Well, if you figure you go to theaters, but besides the ticket prices, the food is through the roof. So people are like, it costs a small fortune, like for us to go. And the kids, and we have relatively inexpensive theaters around here. It's still like, what, 30 or 40 bucks?
Oh, yeah.
Easy.
Even just going to the I'm doing the air quotes, the quote unquote dollar theater now, since they had to upgrade to digital.
It's like $30.
Yeah, it costs almost as much as a regular
so
theater.
You get food and stuff, and they're cheap. They offer cheaper food. I'd still go to there and support that one. But
yeah.
So as a result, these theaters are all threatening. You have a list here of who's threatening to boycott.
Yeah, Regal Cinema's owner, Cineworld, has joined AMC Theaters in declaring it will not show Universal movies or films from any other studio that fails to respect the theatrical window. That's a threat.
Well, not just that. That's kind of, like who I mean, that's awfully entitled.
Right.
I mentioned something similar. Hold on, I'm gonna go back here for a minute. In my article, I'm trying to remember what it was, but I was like, whoa. Here, they're like, Universal does not have reason to use unusual circumstances in an unprecedented environment as a springboard to bypass true theatrical releases. Well, yeah, actually, they do have that right. But, it might suck for you, and it might suck for all the people who love theaters, but they do have the right to do that. Theaters provide a beloved, immersive, shared experience that cannot be replicated. Well, that's true, but they still have the right to step over it.
Right.
And experience that many of the video on demand viewers of this film would have participated in had the world not been sequestered at home, desperate for something new to watch with their families. We're confident that when the theaters reopen, studios will continue to benefit from a global theatrical box office, then followed by traditional home release.
This sounds like the bullshit that's going on in comics right now, where you've got some comics retailers who are very, very butthurt that some states are opening up sooner than others because they're predominantly rural areas or whatever. And like, it's not fair. You're not waiting for me.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, someone brought up a point about that, and I thought it was a funny analogy, but it's like having a pee section in the pool.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, but I mean, in this case, they don't owe it to them to do it. They can't. It's not their, they respect the theatrical window. I mean, I get where they're coming from, and I'm not saying that who's right or wrong here, but what I'm saying is, I think theaters have been doing angling for this for a while, and you can't tell them they have to.
Right. I mean, that's like really, like, who do you think you are? You, Mr. Movie Theater owner, do not create the movies. You're dependent on the studios for product to show. Right.
And I do feel bad for their position. I do. I really do feel bad because where they're at right now, they're totally screwed. They're taking out loans to stay open, and it looked like everybody's gonna play ball because they were pushing back theatrical release windows. And a lot of the companies, I think, are gonna release it then. But I wouldn't be surprised if you wouldn't have something come to video sooner rather than later.
Well, I think if nothing else, it's definitely going to shorten the window between theatrical. And we've seen that shortened over the years. It used to be back in the day, back when we had these things called tapes, VHS tapes, you would have to wait a year or two for a movie to come to VHS. And I remember it was a big deal when Batman came out on VHS only 6 months after it was in the movie theater. Because at that point, yeah. Well, no, I remember being a kid and going to, it was a record store. We had those too. Went to the record store and they had a sign up for Batman coming out. It was Christmas of 1989. I'm like, that can't be right. Batman was just in the theater like 3 months ago. And they're like, they're bringing it out on home video this Christmas. I'm like, no, it took them 3 years to bring E.T. out on home video. And sure enough, they did. And then we've seen that window shrink. Now it's only like 3 or 4 months. I think we'll see it shrink to like 2 weeks or a month after this.
I mean, because they think that Hollywood depends on that box office. And I think they like to tout the box office.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they just want to make money.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. Look, anytime you tell somebody or threaten somebody and tell them, no, you're not allowed to make money unless I make money too. A lot of times they'll be like, piss off, Tiny Tim, and they'll step right over you and do it. And we're seeing it in comics too, where it's like, you're not going to tell us we're not allowed to make and sell comic books because you're not in a position to, or you're not going to get a cut. We have to survive. We have to stay in business.
Right. And that's the same kind of thing. So I respect their position. I understand where they're coming from. I understand why they're flipping out. But I also don't think they have the right to tell people that they can't do this. Yeah,
so this is, this is kind of bullshit. I think, again, I understand it, but it's kind of bullshit because it's going to force the studio's hand, because what's going to happen is, Disney, they have to be looking at this. They have to be looking at this. One, they're like, wait, Trolls made almost $100 million in a couple of weeks. God, we really could use $100 million right now. And they're sitting on some really big movies. And there's no guarantee they're going to perform well because the country's not all going to open at the same time, and people might be gun shy about going to the theater. But Disney might be like, dang, we could drop Mulan, we could drop Black Widow, we could get ourselves kind of in a better place.
Even by the guidelines set forward, at least the ones in Florida, the spacing for theaters is like, when it's phase 2, it was 4 people in a group separated by 2 seats. And then phase 3, I think you could separate them by 1 seat. But that's already going to significantly cut down on the number of seats and the capacity levels allowed at these locations. So they do reopen. They're probably still going to make more money putting it on the PVOD than they would with putting it in the theaters.
So this is what Universal said. their response to this bullshit. Based on the enthusiastic response to the film, we believe we made the right move, the company said in the press release. We absolutely believe in the theatrical experience and have made no statement to the contrary. So yeah, I mean, they're just like, yeah, we believe it. But if they're going to be douchebags... But
there's no theaters right now. What are they supposed to do? Basically, everybody's supposed to not make any money at all for the months it could take until theaters can reopen, depending on the guidelines.
Yes, we're seeing the exact same thing in the comic book industry on a much, much smaller scale, where you've got shop owners who can't open because of the state they're in, bitching about people who are trying to find another way to distribute. You've got people bitching about people bypassing shops altogether and selling direct to consumer. This is the new normal. There are still arcades. Okay, there's still record stores. They're just not as necessary as they used to be. People still seek them out for that experience. And the same thing is going to happen to movie theaters. People will go for the experience, but time marches on.
Well, I feel really bad. I mean, I feel really bad for the theater chains. I feel really bad for the arcades. I feel really bad for the comic book shops. But if you're looking at it as just simply based on facts and data, I'm sorry, but I think it's gonna turn out that it's going to be like you said, where you have some left, but it's not going to be like the people's number one go-to.
Yeah.
And that's terrible, and I'm sorry, but times have changed, and I feel really terrible about it, but I'm just looking at it from just a straight-up data perspective. And times are changing, and people, I think we're going to see a shift in working environments, too. Yeah. They kept saying, oh, you can't work from home because, this reason or that reason, that everybody's working from home, and it worked out. So I think you're going to see more people end up working from home after this and other things like that. So I think there's going to be a bunch of changes when we come out of this.
I mean, anytime you have a major social upheaval like this, things never look the same on the other side of it. They did not look the same after World War II.
They did not look the same after 9/11.
Yeah, and this is how it's going to be. Companies have to make money. They have to distribute their films to make money. And, if people are going to try to stand in the way, and these studios have to be looking at this like, my God, we're dead in the water now because we want to be the good guys. We don't want to step over the movie theaters, but damn it, we could release these movies right now and bring some much needed revenue to the company. Disney has to be looking at this like, my God, if we dropped Black Widow, we'd make a couple $100 million.
They pushed it back and saying they're waiting for theaters, but some places can wait longer than others.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's all about depending on when this comes back online. I mean, best case scenario is like they're talking summer. I mean, at least drive-ins, I think, are going to come back on before that if they aren't already up. But a lot of these movies might not have a place to release them to even later. We don't know what's going to happen. So I don't, think it's wrong of studios to try to get money now when they need to. Whether or not they continue to use the theaters moving forward, they might have still done it. They might have been like, okay, well, now we're going back to theatrical releases, and they just told them they can't.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this whole thing is stupid. Trying to look at it in an objective way, I see both sides of it, but I really don't think the theaters have a right to tell studios they can't put something out when they're the ones that had all the expenses in it. These theaters didn't pay for the movies.
Yeah, that's just it. I mean, and look, this is the way it is. Time marches on. I'm sorry, but you can't tell other people they're not allowed to make money because you're not in a position to make money.
Right.
Either.
Oh, and then something else interesting that goes along with this, I found very fascinating was, so now they're going to change the guidelines for the Oscars. That are going to they're going to lighten the eligibility rules so that if you didn't get to release in a theater this year over the closures, you're still eligible.
Okay.
But in the past, Netflix and other streaming places were told they weren't allowed to compete unless they had a theatrical release.
Okay. Yeah, so this is interesting. I think the Academy Awards are starting to prep. They're starting to prep for this big shift, too. They realize that more and more films are going to be released direct to streaming, and they're even like, yeah, let's make sure that we get in on that, too. But yeah, they tried to block Netflix for years.
Yeah, I know they got through in the last couple years.
Yeah.
But I think a couple of them, didn't they have to rent theaters to release them in theaters, so they were allowed to be eligible because they had a theatrical release? So they put these rules up in place to keep streaming services out. And now that it affects them directly, we're allowed to change those rules and lighten them a bit. Just for this year. Just for this year.
It's not going to be just for this year. They're trying to keep the old normal and at any cost, but it's not going to happen.
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of the Eisner Awards.
Oh God!
Besides the fact that it's a one giant circle jerk, and that's the whole thing's kind of questionably how they it's questionable how they
rigged.
Yeah, basically. It's like that because what happened with webcomics and stuff was they wouldn't acknowledge them and give them a category for years, and then they finally gave them a category, but then that wasn't fair. So then they made it digital comics. So what it became was digital versions of comics that could be entered too. So people that were in webcomics only were only allowed to enter in one category. Mm-hmm. But all the publishing houses that had people that had a digital version or whatever was one of their people, they were allowed to enter for that, and then like best writer, best artist, best whatever else too. And then guess who always wins? Almost always, it's the publishers. So they weren't even allowed. We're giving you this category to make it look like it's fair, but it's not fair, and that's what it reminds me of. We're changing it now that we can win more awards from it.
Yeah, that's what the publishers actually used webcomics to push their digital comics, and they didn't have a separate category. They rolled all digital comics into
and then they were allowed to apply for that and best artist, best inker, but the webcomic people were not allowed to apply for the other categories. You were only allowed to apply in the category that because it was digital only. You were only allowed to apply in that category.
Yeah, so you guys, you riffraff, you stay in the Sidekicks Lounge.
Mm-hmm. And then they'll make sure the publishers, people that have publishing deals, always seem to win.
Yeah.
There are a few exceptions, but for the majority, people who have ties to publishing houses or what have, they always are the ones that get nominated and usually pull the win.
Yeah, the Eisners are absolutely rigged by the publishers. They didn't used to be, but it's basically a marketing tool now, so they can get that little gold seal on the cover of their comic book or on a graphic novel and push it on the New York Times bestseller list. That's what it's all about.
Well, even what was the Harveys? I mean, that was another one. They were actually sending out lists of places like here's the ones you should. Here's what we strongly suggest you should nominate.
Strongly suggest
if you work here.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. And now it's the Ringo Awards, and there's people, and it's funny now because now it used to be you have to be professional to vote for these. Now anybody can vote, and all these people in webcomics. If you go to Twitter, they're like, make sure you nominate me for the Ringo Awards. Hey, guess what? Nominate me for the Ringo Awards. Now that anybody can vote, nominate me for the Ringo Awards. And it's like, so now it's just a big joke anyway.
Yeah, nominate my little comic that nobody reads that you've never heard of, but you follow me on Twitter, so you feel like you have to.
Yeah, some people that get nominations too are the right kind of people, and they have the right kind of friends.
Yeah, then you look at their site traffic, and you're like, you probably get 1,000 views a month if you're lucky.
Oh, that's a good month.
Yeah, that's not a good month.
So I'm just this is what it reminds me of. Sorry to sidetrack into that, but that's kind of what it reminds me of.
That's what we do here. Yeah, we tend to take a lot of detours here on Clownfish TV, so I think we're gonna wrap this one up. Please subscribe. Thank you to all of you who did subscribe and helped us get our play button. If you
haven't seen that video, go watch it.
Yeah, go watch the play button unboxing. It's kind of
different.
Funny. It's different. It's unique. And we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.